not there, just watching from afar. I can't go home because I'm afraid something will change. Me without me, I'm the one to blame. I moved on by my own will. I had nothing else I wanted to do. Was it hard? But I didn't hate it. I did not even like it. I've been patient, but it was bearable. I've had the gray haze for a long time though. I never found out what it was. It's my stress, that's for sure. I never wanted to run away. I was very motivated. Then what is this feeling? Who would I ask? I've been patient, but it was bearable. I've had the gray haze for a long time though. I never found out what it was. I taste like vegetables I don't like. The town inside me and everyone's voice. Only I'm not there, just watching from afar. I can go home, 'cause I'm afraid something will change. Me without me, I'm the one to blame. I'm not waiting for Santa Claus. I already have the gift, just can't open the box. I know all about it, no one can solve it unless I decide to do something about it. It's not even a case. I've been patient, but it was bearable. I've had the gray haze for a long time though. I never found out what it was. I hate the alarm clock I chose. The town is like me, and everyone's voice. Only I'm not there, just watching from afar. I can go home because I'm afraid something will change. Me without me, I'm the one to
Boo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream.
Hello, Orange.
Although right now I'm looking at Shelly's adorable cat that he's on his webcam.
Apologies. You would be hearing Fata Morgana music right now, but I had Splatoon 3 open, so I walked around the overworld to see all the funny things people are posting. Alright, now let's get to
Oh,
the
hey,
real...
Mad Father, gang.
Yeah.
Hakoniwa?
Hakoniwa Explorer
Oh, they did a Switch version of that.
Yo, look, it's Xenoblade 3.
Yeah, let's play that instead. We're gonna play Xenoblade 3
Yeah,
now.
woo.
Yeah.
Who's
But I
your
haven't
voice,
played
Uni?
the first two.
Is that
Me, obviously.
Although I kind of want to.
Yes.
Probably not have time for it. Anyway, enough cat cam because we are starting.
Sure, your cat wasn't in your cam.
Alright. Enough fucking around. Time to go back into the. Actually, not even daily life of Michelle. We're gonna go see what the fuck is going on with the Fat Morgan herself.
Are you guys ready to be depressed?
Not fat.
Oh,
Are
I'm
you
more
guys
than
ready to feel uncomfortable?
I'm basically
Not
ready for it.
fat.
I don't know what could break my heart at this point. I am so ready for whatever horrific fate affects her.
I have to turn this down. This is quite aggressively loud. Give me 1 second.
Aggressive chorus.
I carry within me the child of God.
That is not. That is not what who they sound like.
I think that's supposed to be a woman.
Alright.
You think?
In
Wait,
the,
yeah,
That might be her
Nah,
mom.
she's- I
saying
think
In
there's-
the- in
I
the-
think there's
within her.
N-Preg
That's
in
not a
Fata
god.
Morgana.
in like the hundreds? Do you think in
Alright.
the hundreds?
Don't start sounding like
Everyone just-
don't
Okay,
start
hey,
sounding
hey,
in
hey,
Fata
hey,
now.
hey, hey.
Hello.
I'm
Get
gonna
it
do the
together.
I'm gonna do the clap that they do in classes to get people to pay attention.
1, 2, 3, all eyes on me. 1, 2, 3, all eyes.
No,
3,
get
2,
a
1.
bell.
Okay,
Get a bell and
Anyways.
start ringing.
let's begin. Everybody else who's not, I guess, one of two people mute.
Who's the other person? Oh shit.
Whoever has to voice this person.
Oh. I carry within me the child of God.
That is where it all began. The words of one foolish woman determined the course of my entire life. Before I was even born, my fate was decided. Did her claim come from faith? Was it her way of escaping reality? Did she do it for money? Or fame? I don't know.
I've been visited by an angel of the Lord.
The village where she lived had suffered from years of poor harvest. It had been months since the last rain, and all the villagers prayed desperately to be blessed with succor.
I'm with child, though I've known no man.
So proclaimed the pregnant woman in the midst of the drought. And on the day of my birth, the very moment I let out my first cry, a heavy rain fell down upon the village. The storm quenched the parched earth, nourishing the crops and saving the village. The villagers were astounded, for they had thought the drought would never end. As plump drops of rain poured down upon the village, they gathered around newborn me in exultation.
She's the child of God.
Perhaps there would be more wonder in claiming I had magical powers. Perhaps it would make a better story if I were to say there were higher forces involved. But all these years later, here is what I truly think. It was nothing more than a fluke. An improbable stroke of luck. An unbelievably fortunate accident for my mother and the village. And an indescribably unfortunate accident for myself. I am with child, though I have known no man. As if that's even possible. Maybe she fooled around with a man who had gone and abandoned her. And she spouted those lies to convince herself it had never happened. None of the village men made any claim to be my father. Perhaps he was someone else's husband, and as such he couldn't reveal himself, as adultery is a sin in the eyes of God. The girl they were praising as the child of God was indeed not more than the ordinary daughter of a wretched woman. At the time, though, I thought differently. I believed my mother's words, convinced I was the saint. And it gave me a sense of duty, of purpose, rather than superiority. As the daughter of God, I believed it was my responsibility to help anyone in need. So every day, I prayed. I asked my Father what I could do, what I was meant to do. Not everyone is equally good, however. There will always be someone who lends their ear to the devil's whispers. One man claimed I was the daughter of a charlatan. He shouted for all to hear, "If you really are the child of God, then perform a miracle for us."
could he have been any more unreasonable? Miracles are neither magic nor parlor tricks. They're realized through the power of faith. A lowly villager has no place demanding God prove his own divinity. It is the height of arrogance. But the man refused to heed my words. So, having no other choice, I contemplated what I could do to show him I was indeed a saint. And blood was the spark of my inspiration. Michelle, the time when I lived and the time when you lived were not so different. Our views and beliefs about the world are very much the same. So you should understand that in our time, blood was seen as unclean. It was a dreadful thing, ridden with diseases, which is why we drained the blood from animals and purified the flesh before consuming it. But being the saint, my blood would have been different. Like the blood of the saints who came before me, mine would be blessed. I believed it would be able to cleanse people's impurities. For my demonstration, I chose an elderly woman afflicted with a terrible disease. She was on her deathbed, and no one thought she would live for longer than another day or two. The woman was overjoyed when I came to visit her. Sincerely believing me to be a holy servant of the Lord, she gathered all the strength she could to muster to climb from her bed and kiss my feet. I felt an intensely deep love for this woman. Placing my hands upon her cheeks, I said with all the kindness in my heart, "My beloved sister, partake of my blood." The woman agreed without a glimpse of hesitation. And so I pricked the tip of my finger with a knife and let the blood drip into her mouth. Within 3 days, her health had improved enough for her to get out of bed unassisted. Seeing that, no one in the village doubted my powers any longer. In fact, the man who had accused me of being the daughter of a charlatan was subsequently punished for his sins. He received much deserved retribution for challenging the daughter of God, for mocking her. But of course, being a sin, being a saint, I forgave the man. He in turn repented and changed his ways, worshipping me as the true child of God. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was ecstatic, utterly elated. I felt like I was on top of the world and I reveled in it. The villagers showered me with adulation. They revered me, the daughter of God. Anyone who didn't was punished. And on top of that, my blood could cause miracles. Tell me, do you look down on me for feeling the way I did? The actual child of God would never let herself be consumed by such base emotions, would she? But if you give me a chance, I would like to explain myself. I was but a young girl at the time. And to a child, her mother is the world. Anything she says is the absolute truth. So when my mother's claims so happened to coincide with a lucky miracle, my young mind was set in stone. I was a saint. My blood could heal the sick. and nothing would convince me otherwise. After all, I was but a girl of 6 years old. It is not my place to decide whether my blood truly had miraculous powers or not. If you think it did, and if you think it was all happenstance, then so it was. Or so it did. Miracles are brought about by faith. So the elderly woman who was healed was done so by the power of her own belief. Baseless hope and desire can at times make the otherwise impossible a reality. You understand just how major a role religion played in our time, don't you, Michelle? Especially as someone whose life was taken from him in the name of God. And you understand how powerful word of mouth can be as well, don't you? It didn't take long for word of the miracle-performing child of God to spread. Travelers from faraway lands came to our village, all in search of aid. Driven by a mixture of elation and duty, I gave my blessings unto every pilgrim who sought them. I gave them my blood, yes. My young hands were perpetually covered in wounds. Running out of skin on my fingers, I cut the back of my hands, my palms, my wrists. Before long, they had turned into swollen, carved-up black and red horrors. And so I kept them wrapped in cloth at all times. The only time I uncovered them was to give blood to those who sought it. My lacerated hands were, in no uncertain terms, gruesome and unsightly. But the believers who came to see me all wept at my selfless sacrifice. And so I came to cherish those wounds. There were for some whom no miracle took place, but whenever that would happen, the villagers would come out and say, "The daughter of God is not to blame. You simply lack sufficient faith." Thus, such incidents had no negative effects on my reputation as a saint. For 3 years, I continued doling out blessings. One day, while I was offering a prayer, my mother let slip her discontent.
Why must you hand out miracles for nothing? Why must you give strangers grace? We should be getting compensated. We deserve remuneration. If we charged just a little bit for each blessing, we could live so much more comfortably.
I was dumbfounded. How could the mother of a saint say such things? Helping people was my divine calling, and she expected payment? I nearly wept, hearing my mother preoccupied with such worldly desires. So I explained to her how important this work was. I taught her that we were not to covet material wealth, that we were to dedicate our lives to the service of our fellow man.
You're right, my dear saint,
She said, understanding. And I believed her. I fell asleep that night, convinced she truly understood and that there would be no more problems. But the next day, I was sold off. Men I had never seen before carried me by the arms and tossed me into a carriage. Confused and panicked, I stuck my head out searching for my mother. off in the shadow of a house. I saw her with a strange man, accepting a bag of coins. The carriage rocked back and forth, as it rolled along a dirt road. Shaking and bouncing within it, I struggled with overwhelming grief and despair. It was, perhaps, the first time in my life I have felt such a powerful emotion. I didn't know what I felt so much despair over, though. Obviously, it was over my present predicament, but I wasn't sure what about it hurt the most. Was it that I'd been pawned off like a slave? Was it that my mother, the mother of a saint, had been blinded by money? Was it that the villagers had watched in silence as a disciple of the Lord was thrown into a carriage? Or was it that I, a daughter of God, lamented my misfortune like a mortal? I decided it was a trial. My father, the Lord God, was testing my worthiness of being his daughter. So I choked back my urge to cry and sat there in silent contemplation. For almost 3 weeks, I was rocked around in the carriage. The coachman treated me well enough, but I'm certain it was only because he didn't want his precious cargo dying before he could deliver it. He did not, by any means, think me the child of God. The 3rd week, the carriage arrived at a city. It was much larger than the village I had grown up in, with many, many more people crowding the streets. Something about them felt different too. They all spoke in a tongue foreign to me, which is when I realized I was far, far away from home. I was delivered to the lavishly decorated mansion of the region's lord. Brightly colored flowers bloomed wildly in the garden as guests laughed and ate extravagant meals. And in addition to them, there were probably 4 times as many slaves moving about the grounds. Getting a range of looks from everyone we passed, from smartly dressed men to scrawny, emaciated servants, I was led to the Lord's chambers. The Lord was surrounded by beautiful women. Perhaps they were slaves, or perhaps they were prostitutes. I couldn't tell. Among them were some girls hardly older than me. They all wore thin swaths of cloth, barely covering themselves at all. The Lord looked upon me up and down, and with a laugh, he said,
"Welcome, daughter of God. You'll be performing miracles for me now."
1 second, I need to take a phone call.
Who wants to be Morgana in the meantime? Not all at once, everybody.
I can take over.
No.
Shut the fuck up.
No, B, you go.
Miracles are not something to be performed for one single person's benefit. I replied, shocked and furious he had said something so utterly blasphemous. In response, he said,
I thought you. You're my property. You have no right to an opinion.
but I would not have any of it. I entreat him to give up his indulgent lifestyle and devote himself to the service of the Lord. The more I pleaded, the deeper the creases of his face grew. Thinking back on it now, it was hardly surprising. A nine-year-old girl was scolding the most powerful man in the region. I believed it was my duty, and I was only doing what was right, but he surely saw it as incredible arrogance. So the Lord forced his will upon me. He bound my hands and feet and cut me without my permission, filling a goblet with my blood and passing it around to his guest.
A saint's blood and good fortune to all!
That was when I realized the Lord was only interested in the approval of others. He reveled in their envy as he pranced about, showing off his curious new toy. Me. He didn't need my miracles. Neither he nor any of his guests were afflicted with disease or misfortune. They were all richly blessed. Every time he threw a banquet, he drained me of my blood. It became nearly impossible to find a spot on either my arms that wasn't swollen reddish black gash. And soon, because my arms weren't providing enough blood for him, the cutting spread to my legs. I lived in a haze of half-consciousness. Honestly, I'm amazed it didn't kill me, though perhaps the Lord was simply taking care to not take more than my body could spare. Watching the wealthy partygoers laugh and sip my blood through bleary eyes, another wave of despair came over me. My miracles, my blood, were not meant to be an appetizer at a feast. They were meant for the sick and the poor. But despite my wishes, the Lord persisted to squeeze me dry day in and day out for his own enjoyment. For a while, I was convinced it was all God's test. That it was a part of his plan for me, his daughter. And if I could make it through this trial, I would be allowed to go back to helping people. And that man would celebrate my success, envy me, and worship me. And that sinners would face punishment. And that divine retribution would be delivered unto all who had wronged me, a saint. With each passing day, my spirit grew more twisted. Would anyone have believed that scarred, bloody girl tied up on the floor in the banquet hall was a saint? Unlikely. This was no charitable gathering, but an unholy Sabbath. Perhaps it caused by my corrupted spirit. Perhaps it was my heart's way of crying for help. Or perhaps it was the devil giving me my witch's mark. But no matter what the cause, during one of the bloody banquets, I underwent a transformation. I was half conscious, as usual, when one of the guests pointed at me and shouted something. His face went pale, as if he were afraid, which I found quite curious. The Lord then approached me, grabbed me by my hair, and lifting my head. He yelled something, but I was too far gone to be able to make out what he was saying. Suddenly, I found myself released from my bonds. but my body had grown so weak from being tied up for so long. I didn't have the strength to hold myself up, so I collapsed on the floor. I was still trying to figure out what was happening when the Lord drew a sword, raising it high above his head. His words in that moment reached me with perfect clarity.
You damned witch still wearing a saint's skin!
A witch? Why was he calling me a witch? I was the holy daughter of God. I had certainly never made a pact with the devil. What could have given him that idea? What was in store for me now? Had God performed some kind of miracle for him? Dozens of thoughts and questions floated through my mind as death hung over me. I couldn't comprehend anything, and so I didn't feel any fear or anger at my impending death. I was simply curious. What had happened to me? But before I had a chance to find that answer, the Lord swung down his blade.
Without warning, at any time to prepare, the darkness drained away. And a second later, I crashed into the stairs, hard. Right in my ear, I can hear the hiss of a river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to very real images of a past I never lived. I can practically feel the fire in the eyes of that mad blood banquet's guests. My vision distorts. I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs? Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint? A witch? Is what I'm seeing through a lens of clarity? Or madness? Wait, no. I am not her. I am Michelle. No one else!
It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe. Your chest is on fire, your vision is blurry. It's dark, it's lonely, it's scary. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, it's exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt.
I've reached my hand out in a plea for help. Just when I see something I can hardly believe. Both of my arms are covered in gashes, blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh beneath my skin has been exposed to the open air. All I can bring myself to do is scream. That pain, her horrible past, is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting and constricting and crushing me. Why is this
happening to you? Are you really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. You're just that kind-hearted, Michelle. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? That you would make your way to me? Then surely this won't be enough to do you in.
Of course it won't. every last bit of strength I can, I begin crawling up the stairs. The red river beats against my open wounds, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my lacerated arms mixed with the blood already soaking the tower. So this is the pain Morgana suffered? Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did your resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life, turn into hatred for all mankind?
Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michelle. My grudge is only against a select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands, millions, billions of people living on this planet, my world is comprised but a minuscule fraction of that. Hatred for all mankind. No, what I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although, if I had died still believing I was a saint, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission.
Are you saying the Lord didn't kill you?
Oh my, did you actually think that was the end of my tale? Despite all your big talk, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said you wouldn't give in. So, go on. Know my pain. Without losing your mind.
Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say. I have no chance to object before I'm dragged back to that repulsive banquet. I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it will reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away at my consciousness.
You damned witch wearing a saint's skin!
Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now. But that's all conjecture. Theorizing about what could have happened is an exercise in futility.
Back. But no. I did not die that day. Brought together by constant mistreatment, the Lord's slaves chose that moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into him and it was knocked off its course. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched the chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the riot, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my bloody, limp arm and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, a place where people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. By the time we had arrived at a small brothel located a ways into the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I knew where we were, and feeling the gazes of those scantily clothed women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had ever been in my life, despite everything else I had been put through. The idea that I had fallen so far I would have to become a prostitute scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints were supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man who gave me enough coins would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest. Because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me here to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she would give me a room. I had trouble believing him, though. I couldn't trust the word of a prostitute. Someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day, they would tell me I had to work. Nothing he said would convince me otherwise. Apparently sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown and handed me a mirror, saying, "Even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that." I could not believe what I saw. That couldn't be my face. It had to be an illusion. There was no way. That was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible. Patches of skin had fallen off my face, exposing the raw, red flesh beneath. It looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs. Except my face had never been cut before. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. The thing in my reflection was a hellish abomination. It was the twisted face of a witch. And although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. It explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me. And it also explained why he said I was a witch wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of the dozens of banquets I participated in, my face must have mutated. Twisted into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I become sapped the last bit of willpower from me. Not because I was particularly fond of my face or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumble away. Test from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. deciding I would rather be dead than struggle any longer. I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life is a sin. If I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side, and I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulation. But the young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I persevered, good fortune would eventually find me. He said that if I lived on, I would eventually have a chance to get my payback. I had no such worldly concerns, though, but if no one would take my life, I had no choice but to live. I despised life at the brothel. The men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kind of people who would think they could deceive God. And the women fawning over them were just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. But by the time a year or so had passed, my feelings about it had changed. The women of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first, it was just irritating. I was a saint, and how could a saint have prostitutes for sisters? But over time, I got to know them better, grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, whenever they had a little to spare, they would use it to purchase medicine. Ointments to apply to my arms, legs, and my face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started looking almost human, but nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally, the slave would drop in to check on me. The other men thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near me, but he was different. And every time he visited, he would say, "One day, I'll show you the world." And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time at the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There, I was neither saint nor witch, but an ordinary human girl. For the first time, I felt like my life had meaning beyond my assumed divine purpose. I was even beginning to feel kind of happy. And with each passing day, my intractable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles. But that didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of God or a saint. Maybe I was just a regular person who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself. But to me at the time, it felt like a very dramatic change of heart. 3 years after the revolt at the Lord's Manor, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. The women all pitched in to bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought that if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've gotten your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it, so why must they? I certainly didn't mind not being miserable. Let me tell you what happened that night. On the night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now, bandits were hardly a rarity in that time, so everyone was always on the lookout, and we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armed with blades and would frequently kill their targets if necessary. But cautious as we were helpless against a direct raid. The brothel fell into a panic, screams echoing in the night. The customers were carved up and left for dead. The women were bound and sewed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant. And the next thing I knew, I was some slave trader's merchandise. I don't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me or the slave who brought me to them. I assume the women were sold and the young man slaughtered. But regardless, I found myself being rocked around in the back of a carriage once more. The carriage was packed so tightly you could barely see the floor. It smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, every foul odor imaginable compressed into that tiny space. Were both men and women there, nearly all of them muttering or groaning or weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be put to work. It didn't take me long to realize what fate awaited these people. And me. And when I did, I just sat there in silence. Then, for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad. Hurt that I had been taken away from a place where I was happy. From the women at the brothel, and that young man who crushed me. And no longer did I wonder why such a thing was happening to the holy daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him because one man saw me and said,
Why are you crying?
he was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The color of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes. Everything about him was new and unusual. Hesitantly, I replied, I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me. The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping out of line, and they didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. So unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed it at the man. What was surprising, though, was what happened next. The man, his hands shackled like the rest of us, leapt for the guard, slamming his fists into his face and stealing his sword. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards were too stunned to effectively react, so they were quickly cut down. And because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was no one the slave traders could ask for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over. And there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had to describe it, I would say as though a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled his slave trader's clothes until he found the keys, which he brought to me, ordering I unshackle him. And so I did as he commanded. Once they had enough time to process what had happened, the would-be slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved. And for a moment, I believed so too. When the man's hands were free, he rolled his shoulders a couple times, made sure everything was in place. And then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through the helpless men and women packed inside. Blood and guts were splattered against every surface. And those who tried to escape did not get far before being mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place. Not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, so my mind rejected it. And with my brain having given up, my body was no more than a lifeless puppet. In short, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me, and with a little smirk, said,
Why didn't you run?
In turn, I asked them, Why did you kill them? The smile vanished from his face, and after a few moments of pondering, he replied,
Because I felt like it.
And why haven't you killed me yet? I asked. To which he gave a curt,
I don't know.
then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. And then I was all alone, surrounded by corpses. I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me.
Wrapped in absolute darkness, warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, and my skin. Chunks of human flesh rain down on me. Make it stop! Pitter patter, pitter patter. There's no end to this deluge. The smell of death fills the air. I'm struck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. But when my mouth opens to vomit, only blood pours out of it. Let go of me! Dead bodies grabbing my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell? Or to the mountain of corpses?
Now do you understand that there was a time? If but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions. But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my daughter of God's shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death.
I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced. The massacre she witnessed. The limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age is enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me.
Tell me, my dear. Do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me. Won't you?
The witch's cackle echoes through the pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light, and hideous death lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep, dark ocean. An ocean of blood.
Now, on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew there was no one left who would take me in. There was only the Lord who had bound me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind, and nothing to defend myself but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance, I saw a lake. So driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet toward the water, not caring that it took me off the main road. And it turned out that was the correct choice, because there was a small cottage beside the lake. Smoke rising from the chimney, telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open. And beyond it, I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch. By trade, that is. It appeared she had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was asleep. Presumably, she had passed away of old age, for there were no signs bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over at the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Do you think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cozy cottage was no longer of this world. There was no reason I couldn't build a home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable after everything I'd been through, didn't I? And so, I took up residence in the old witch's cottage. And remained there until my 16th year. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travelers would, on occasion, pay the old witch's cottage a visit seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food and never showing my face. One day, a young man showed up at the cottage.
My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine.
He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice, which I thought unusual. Curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the crack in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing, flaxen hair. And upon seeing me, he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. The medicines I gave him too had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relieve even the slightest bit of his sister's suffering. And, moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could to help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would ask not only for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me despite my horrifying appearance.
Not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline?
He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything. And whenever he did, he was at his brightest and most melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble home, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden.
I'll take anything at this point to make her feel better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one.
That word, muttered beneath my breath, muttered beneath his breath, sparked my memory. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted man's young sister. So I decided to tell him what I really was. That my blood had miraculous powers. That it had saved people. That the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end. That I had known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything. And he believed it all. He led me to his house, where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them. And so I made a new cut on my arm, which healed considerably thanks to the slave and the women of the brothel. And let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood. And because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was, she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. A miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now, though, I believe I can explain what happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. Over time, though, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he seems hesitant to look me in the eye. I assumed it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I don't think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time. And not only was I giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. Looking at it that way, it would hardly be a surprise for him, or anyone else, to think what I was doing was depraved.
It's imbibe.
Oh, sorry, imbibe. Thank you. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, I would continue offering her my blood. And I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls. So as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door. But I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking.
Are you the witch with the miracle blood?
First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? I told the man he had to leave. That I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said,
I'm in need of your blood. Can you not spare a little?
my blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. And I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood. The man drenched in crimson wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage. But instead, he gave a simple,
As you say.
And he went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief. Which is when I realized tears were rolling down both of my cheeks. Like an ordinary girl. Three days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage.
I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over.
Those two sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more. And I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who had been there a few days earlier. About how scared I had been. I wanted to tell him it would be all right. I wanted him to tell me it would be all right. I want to talk to you too. I said, opening the door without a single thought. The light of the sun was so bright, all I could make out was his silhouette. I couldn't see the look on his face or the look in his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past. And my mind froze. How could this be happening? What did it mean? Why? How? What was that man doing? Standing behind him. Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming into my house? And why did he swing it down? Severing my arm. I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew it was happening, and then my legs gave out. The pain, searing and unbearable, came a few moments later as I was lying in an ever-ending, expanding pool of my own blood. I did something then that I hadn't done before. That I had resisted doing no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. It was a hideous, visceral noise. A sound I had never thought a saint could make. The same ear-splitting howl the slaves had made as the man had butchered them. I writhed. I wailed. I wept. I crawled across the floor through my own blood. I begged, and I begged, and I begged for my life. The man walked over and picked up my severed arm. And then, shockingly, he tossed it to the kind-hearted young man. After which he said,
"It's your share. Should last you long enough."
"Share?" What did he mean by share? What was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm? And why had he taken it? Why was he talking like they knew each other? Why? Why? I had spared blood for him when he asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and stealing it easier on his conscience than simply asking? You understand how I felt, don't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as his legs would allow. The man then walked over and picked me up. I had neither the strength nor willpower to resist. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak. Telling me things I didn't want to know. Things I didn't want to hear. But he didn't care.
Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church.
Don't take it personally. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? How was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed, And I was supposed to turn the other cheek? A man had barged into my home uninvited and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it? Is there anyone, anywhere, who doesn't feel even the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush off this level of abuse? Tell me, is there? How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? How could I possibly forgive them? Tell me, please. Tell me, how could I?
He needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her.
The Lord? Why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during one of his blood Sabbats, why was he after my blood once more? Had he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back?
You get to be the sacrifice. To keep her church from collapsing. To keep her world from collapsing.
Sacrifice? Excuse me. What? And what's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people. And you're trying to protect a church? You? Are you out of your mind? Churches are where people go to commune with God. To speak with my Father. How dare you soil those sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast! It's insulting, sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are?
So don't take it personally, witch.
I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work. Not to satisfy the avarice of men. Why is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city. But instead of taking me to the Lord's manor, He brought me to a church on the city's outskirts. Though, to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to less fortunate children, the poor, and the infirm. That was when I learned why he said they needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food and supplies ran low, they would ration their own in order to keep helping others. As a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There were no priests. All management was handled by a single nun, who everyone referred to as the Saintess. I was the saint. Why was this woman, who didn't have the ability to perform miracles, being worshipped like she did? Why did the people of the city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why? Was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower. It was there that I had my reunion with the Lord. I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's profit. He was not offering free aid, but selling it as medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir, telling no one that it was actually my blood. It was mixed with a beautiful red wine, and drinking it would cure you of any ailment. If they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it unclean. They would fear it. I remained imprisoned for a long, long time. In the beginning, the swordman guarded me. Though before long, the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Presumably, one severed arm wasn't enough to keep his sister healthy for long. In listening to their conversations, I learned that, to ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with 3 locks.
Freezing. Am I still audible? Hello? Alright, cool. My computer's done having a shit fit. Can you see the text? Is everything good?
You're good now.
You are good now.
Cool. Resuming.
The Lord, the swordsman, and the young man each held one of the keys. I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain of blood away from wandering eyes. Time went on, and I grew progressively weaker. I lost the will to eat, and the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through a window high up on the wall. Occasionally, a pigeon would fly in. Sometimes a butterfly. Then it would glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleased. And soon, It was spring. Every spring, the church held a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from far below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard the flaxen-haired girl's voice who had regained her health drinking my blood. I heard her brother's voice, who had betrayed me. I heard the nun's voice, who played saint in my stead. I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice, who had chopped off my arm. And I heard the Lord's voice, the root of all my suffering. I heard people praising the saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. I heard people thanking the Lord for his generous donations in miracle medicine, though it had all come from me. Propped up on my suffering, they cheered and clinked glasses of my bloody wine. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinners' voices resounded in my tower. And at noon, on the day of the festival, the church bell tolled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and with the 12th chime, I died. At the bell's last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open. Standing on the other side of it were the 3 men. They must have wanted to drain a little more for me to use in the feast. But they arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express his consternation.
Why? I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating?
The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance and said stone-faced,
Seal the tower off. Understood? No one finds out about this.
How can you be so calm? You understand what you've done?
Ha! Pinning the blame on me. How nice it must be to distort reality with panic.
The swordsman, who had been silently observing the Lord and the boy conversing, interjected.
You're just as guilty as any of us.
Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absent-mindedly.
I never wanted her to die.
What did his intentions matter, though? It was his betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this mansion. But the fact they didn't grieve my death and instead squabbled amongst themselves like filthy rats, was the final straw. How could I not despise them? I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith. The illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The blood wine was only effective because people placed their faith in the other saintess. I was only ever human. But then, in that moment, an actual miracle occurred. My father bestowed upon me his power. Or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down upon my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint. I laughed at the thought. It was absurd. Ridiculous. And infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch out of me. Hatred coursed through me. Revulsion, and everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon. If they wanted so badly to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them. Every last one of them. Place a curse on their souls. And so I made my wish. One might consider it a curse, but to me it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted that wish. From the garden, there rose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone. He went deathly pale, darting down the spiral staircase until he reached a window. A young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the grass. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms. But she had already perished. Realizing this, he cried to the heavens, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself.
The witch killed her. The blood of the witch killed my sister! That wine you're drinking is no medicine! It's the blood of the witch! You're all drinking witch's blood!
Crushed by the loss of his only family, the young man picked up a silver fork and plunged it into his own throat, ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar. Goblets of wine crashed against the earth in rapid succession, as the people holding them fell to the ground and vomited or convulsed. The nun was the first target of their outrage. What she had claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood, an unclean substance. The blood of a witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink. And at this, their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying her up and throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman roared down and soared down the stairs in the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church grounds were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of men. Hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much of a beast as he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes. And once he was gone, the nun had no one left to protect her. She too was consumed by their frenzy. All that remained was an indistinguishable inferno. Hysteria and despair. Madness and outrage. And no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves' uprising at the Lord's Manor look like a game. Eventually, their rage found a new target, the Lord. It was only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given money, and the witch's blood, to the church. He was the one who had profited off it. And above all, people often resented those who stood above them. Particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded with cries for the Lord's head. And he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. But before long, having seemingly made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to his people. But before the door had swung all the way open, before he had a chance to say his final words, someone ran a blade through his chest. With that, the raging furor mostly settled down, but it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. Ghastly howls echoed through the streets, as though the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haste, the people muttered again and again, "We have been cursed by the witch." In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body was left abandoned at the top of the observation tower. And as if to seal the curse away, in their final days, the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. It's possible. That was no miracle either. You can easily explain what happened to them. Locked away for so long in that dirty tower, maybe I caught some kind of disease. And then when the people drank my blood, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of the ordinary about that. The first to die, the girl, had already been ill. Her body merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed. It was nothing more than a fluke. An improbable stroke of luck. An unbelievably unfortunate accident for the city and those 3 men. And an indescribably fortunate accident for myself. But I wish to believe it was a miracle. That even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what caused that uprising. That was my miracle. Granted to me by God or the devil. I choose to believe that. And that my miracle took on its true form thereafter. My curse had brought death upon the 3 men. But for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died. So what? Death is but a transient agony. It's nothing compared to what I went through. So I made my next wish. I wished for their reconstruction. I wished eternal suffering on their souls. I wished to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. This was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. He treasured his dear sister, and he desired a quiet life. So I wished for him to have just that. And I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the world. For his world to be destroyed by love gone too far. This was my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tendency for violence and he yearned to be more human. So I had his inner beast toned up, just a little. I saw to it that he would never be human. So he would never have the peace he so desired. My wish for the Lord was more straightforward. He seemed to have great affection for wealth and authority, so I ensured those were the only things he could ever have. Who needs love or friendship when you could be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, his solitude would be his only companion. Wishes can come true. As long as you always hold fast. Never stop wishing. Never surrender. They can come true. Eternal suffering on all their souls. An endless cycle of reconstitution and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revile them with me?
This time when my body crashes into the tower's stairs, I'm able to make a noise. The obstruction is less mental and more physical. The excruciating pain. It's so intense I can't even eke out a scream. My vision is distorted, my mind thick with fog. I feel like I'll fall into a bottomless pit if I loosen my grip on my consciousness even slightly. Through the haze, I see my own severed left arm, reflected in a pool of blood. I see my face, large chunks of flesh peeled off.
Look at you, trying to crawl up those stairs like a worm. How pathetic. It's like I'm looking at my old self.
I can barely form a coherent thought. I can't lament her inhuman fate, can't mourn for her, or be shocked by the revelation, but the three men and her history with them. Pain. It fills every corner of my mind, every nook and cranny of my body.
You've figured it out by now, haven't you, my dear? You'll never make it to me. It's not possible. But it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. There's simply no one who can bear this pain. You're allowed to give up, to rest. There's nothing wrong with that. The pain, the crushing weight, it's miserable, isn't it? But all you have to do is turn back. And it'll all go away.
The wish whispers her sweet temptations.
You've put in a fine effort. There's no shame at all in throwing in the towel.
Her voice is gentle, pleasant, saccharine.
Concede defeat.
If I do, it'll all go away. The searing pain spreading from the stump of my left arm. The sensation of being perpetually drained of my blood. The miserable solitude of staring at a door that never opens. The laughter I can hear through the window. My miserable wailing. And this maddening hatred. I can end it all.
That's right. It will all be over. You have the power to make it stop.
Make it all stop. No! I can't let that happen. No. I have to. I have to get her back. At my side. I'll do anything to take her back. Even if it means I end up at a 1,000 tiny scrapes of meat. I will not give up on her for any reason.
You won't. Will you? Ah, such beautiful resolve. Willing to sacrifice yourself to save the girl. Like a hero of legend. Or maybe a fairy tale prince.
No. I am no hero. I am no prince. I am a human. An ordinary man. I don't have any extraordinary potential. I'm not a courageous leader or a charismatic general. I'm just a regular man. In love with a regular woman. Who refuses to lose her. I don't need any other accomplishments. Only that. That's all I need. Because I'm just a regular man. My one act of resistance. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much you cut me up. Nothing changes. What I have to do. I have to take her back. And set her free of this mansion. Nothing else. And never will I back down on that. Arms or no. As long as I can move, I must push forward. I must make my way to the woman who waited for me for so long. Up. To the top of the tower. Forward. Ever onward. Dragging my bloody body. Paying the pain no mind. I once more arrived at the top of the observation tower. I placed my hand on the door, holding myself with a lacerated right arm. Took a moment to catch my breath, then lift my head, gaze into the void, and shout her name. Morgana! I pity you. I truly do. You were a saint shackled with an unfathomable fate, and for that I am enraged. And I feel your pain as I watched your life. I too felt a burning hatred for those three men.
If you truly feel that way, then why can't you stay here with me? We're all dead anyway. We've reached our ends. Do you honestly think there's anything more for us? There isn't. The end is the end. So what do you say the three of us? Me, you, and Giselle. Torture the three of them and everyone they cared about. Make them suffer here for all eternity in this house. And that way, you and Giselle can be together forever too.
That's not an option!
Why not?
Because hatred only brings you pain.
Ha! Oh, that's brilliant. You spouting stupid platitudes at me. I can't believe my ears. Save your nonsense moralizing about how hatred does you no good. I won't hear it. I'm doing just fine for myself, my dear. In fact, I've never been better. I feel wonderful. Did you think that would be enough to persuade me? Really? How disappointing. And here I thought you understood me.
Morgana.
Why don't you say what you really think? Go on right ahead. Hate them as much as you want. But keep me and Giselle out of it. Why didn't you just say that?
I do feel bad, truthfully, for all the time we spent together. Never once did I ask about your life. I was so focused on myself. And in the end, I pushed you away.
That you did. You wanted to be with Giselle, so you pushed me out.
I wish I had asked you sooner.
It wouldn't have changed anything, though. One puny man knowing what I went through would hardly be enough to erase the loathing I bear. It would have turned out the same regardless. There was nothing you could have done for me. There is nothing.
Still, I would like to apologize. Had I known what you carried in your heart, perhaps I could have chosen my words better. Instead of rejecting you, I could have chose some other response. I cannot remain in this house, nor can I allow her to stay either. So I would like to apologize for both my past actions and my present.
Well, in that case, open the door, Michelle.
I took another moment to catch my breath, and then I gather my strength into the hand on the door. Blood seeps from my fingertips, slowly trickling down the rough surface. It reminds me of my death. I'm coming for you. I push open the door, praying that it will be the last, that beyond it lies light for Giselle, and if possible, that it might cast a bit of light on Morgana's heart as well. However, why am I in my bedroom? What I find beneath the door is the last thing I expect. Behind the door. Huh? As she appears from the shadows of my chambers, I can't conceal my surprise. Giselle? Is this another illusion, Morgana?
No, it's not. I am the real me. Thank you for coming all the way here for me.
She's thanking me. So why isn't she smiling?
That was very kind and courageous of you, Michelle. I'm deeply moved you would have such compassion not only for her, but for someone like me. But do you know what else you are? You're a worm.
What is it this time, Morgana?
What do you say we pull back the curtain, my dear?
What curtain?
There's one detail that hasn't yet come to light. This isn't your first return to the mansion, is it? You've been back numerous times. Each time not remembering her, and each time hurting her even more.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? Oh, you know good and well, my dear. Or do you honestly believe that all the other pieces were in their rightful places and you alone were some exception?
I never...
Tell me, how was it? Living in so many different eras, not knowing who you were, and playing with all the different men.
No! You're out of your mind! You make it sound like I was...
Not like, my dear. You are the white-haired girl.
Enough! How could anyone possibly confuse me with her?
To tell you the truth, I couldn't see you as anyone else. Your white hair, red eyes, porcelain skin, and your name. Tell me, what about you isn't the same?
We're not the same person! I
saw the letter.
What?
The one you had hidden.
No.
And you don't think that was worth mentioning?
No, Giselle, I didn't mean...
You're exactly right, my dear Giselle. He deceived you. He kept a very important secret from you. Despite showing up for you multiple times, he cast you aside again and again.
No, that wasn't me! It wasn't!
It all makes sense now. Nothing you ever did was for me.
Giselle,
Go on, Giselle. Tell him exactly how you feel.
Michelle.
Don't... Please, don't say it! Not that, please! I'm begging you!
You're...
Stop. Please don't, Giselle.
Not actually.
Please. Don't say it!
A man at all, are you? You're disgusting.
You're the only one it could have been, my dear. The only one who could have been the white-haired girl.
The next moment, my whole world comes tumbling down. I could have borne anything. Losing my arm, having my face torn off. Any amount of pain, I could have handled it. For you, I could have done it. But this, hearing those words, coming from your mouth, being rejected by you, that I cannot. Those words, they burn me, they bury me alive. And you're the one person I never wanted to hear them from. I am being told to cut here, I'm afraid. Oh, yeah. Well, actually, wait. Hold on a second. What about the letters?
Listen.
Like, I mean, I guess...
it's called a cliffhanger. We will learn about the letters next time.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'm getting a fucking drink, damn.
You'll learn about why he wrote 2 letters later.
Okay, everybody, take 5. Don't actually take 5, but take a few seconds. Collect yourselves. Please watch the words you use in our discussion chat. Yeah.
Okay, before we actually get to discussion-y, wait until the door 7. I'm sorry, Clinical, but I've unfortunately, I have very little agency in my own stream.
What did Clinical say? I'm
The
sorry.
witch that is controlling, it shares Orange's body.
Clinical
through
says we
dating.
should wait until the door 7 cut, because it's like a few lines away.
Okay.
Alright, few lines. We'll do it. When I learned my father Anton had passed, I wrote 2 letters. One to my brother and one to my mother. It was the first time I had found the courage to face my mother. To open up to her. I wanted to show her who I was. Convince her that I wasn't cursed. So I could be myself when I returned to the capital with Giselle. Dear mother, there's something I wish to tell you. Something that means a great deal to me. So I ask of you, please, hear me out. And I ask of you, please accept it. Mother, I no longer bear any resentment for my present lot in life. Nevertheless, I would ask of you to concede one thing. That I was never cursed. That I was always your son. That I am Michelle and not Michelle. I found someone whom I care for dearly. A woman. And I love her with all of my heart. I would like to spend the rest of my life with her. I do not wish for much. Simply to have a quiet life with her. To go through our days together, man and woman. That is one thing I want. Mother, I know you're aware that my body is no longer female. I am a man. My heart is male. And I ask of you to please accept that. I have no grudge with you. In fact, I am incredibly grateful to you for bringing me into this world with love. Your dearest son. Shortly after sending that letter, I was killed. I'm dragged down, against my will, into the darkness. Beneath me spreads my own past. My door. The door I swore to never open. But despite all my efforts to resist, the door sucks me in. Into a world I never wanted to see again. A history I never wanted revealed. A past I never wanted anyone to see. Nonetheless, the door opens. Alright, and that's where we're going to end it.
Okay.
Cool. See? It's like 3 minutes.
All right. My bad. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Thank you, Clinical.
Oh, Ned, I haven't had that much fun since I voiced B.
What?
Wait, what?
Beatrice?
What?
Oh, Beatrice.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Others-
it's a very,
Oh, you mean
very
Bale.
strange way to rephrase that. Okay.
Yeah, this is a very interesting time to get to this part because, like, early on, I just found out, like, a buddy of mine just came out as trans in Discord.
Good for her.
Wow.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Her.
Her. Okay,
Good
cool.
for them.
Good for her.
Thank
you.
I'm doing a Warhammer game with her tomorrow.
You'd love to see it.
Have fun.
Also, because of that conversation, I kind of missed how she got away from the Lord. How did she get away from the Lord again?
From the what now?
She died of blood disease.
No, early. Like, how she got...
Yuki,
how she
no.
got
There was a revolt.
There was
Oh,
an
okay.
uprising, and one of the slaves rescued her out of
Okay.
there.
There was just a slave revolt, and all the slaves just left without killing anyone.
So, I'm going to ask you guys to just hold off on yelling at each other about a topic. While I go to get water, I will be right back. Please,
gather
just
your thoughts.
give
and
me
also
1
gather
second.
your thoughts
Gather your
calmly.
thoughts. Just like general statements. Don't go crazy until I tell you to. All right, cool. I'll be right back.
All right.
And even then, don't go too
Holding
crazy.
myself back.
How was
I
my
think
mic
since-
quality? How was I
Please,
doing?
y'all just don't know how much I'm in the reaction chat.
I think the story's kind of crazy.
I think we're gonna say cringe.
Ain't it going stupid, going crazy, kind of wild?
It's like cool motive. Morgana still irredeemable.
I thought we were waiting.
Fine, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were waiting.
We are waiting. No,
We are
who's
not.
actually
He's
waiting?
loud.
We are waiting. AC just decided to fire from the hip before anybody could get anything.
I
out.
think he should be punished.
Piss from the hip.
Here,
Seriously
we will
though, how was
simply mute now.
my mic quality? How'd I do?
Your mic quality was fine.
It was
Mostly
good.
fine.
There was just
It was
like
static
one
for a
section
bit.
of second, but yeah, it cleared itself.
They despise AC because he told the truth.
You know when.
No,
Is
because you said anything before you were supposed
Roboot,
to.
hold on, everybody shush. I'm gonna call out Roboot for no reason. Why do you never have an opinion?
He wasn't here for like a big part of it.
Yeah, he
Was he not? I thought he was. Who kept
was
saying
okay.
he back? Was it him?
That was Rowboat.
Oh, what the
That was Rowboat.
Sir?
Yeah, you missed out.
Wait, what the fuck? That wasn't me.
Wait, then
You're in the
yeah,
AFK channel.
You were in
for a while.
foil for like
For a
an
while.
hour, like
I mean,
45 minutes at least.
Also, B, sometimes people just don't have anything to say about things.
Listen, I haven't heard Roboot's voice in like fucking like 3 sessions. I was just concerned.
He doesn't have anything to say, I guess. It's not like it's a detective mystery.
But people
Damn,
just
I said opinions. I didn't say.
Well, I mean,
people
I'm just saying, like,
content.
I'm just saying, like, he doesn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
He's turning into Rowboot whenever B reaches a part in Final
back.
Fantasy 14.
Bro, actually, you know what? Don't ask me about anything in Final Fantasy 14. I have no thoughts.
Also,
All right.
maybe he doesn't want to.
Okay.
I kid. Okay, welcome back, Orange.
All right, everybody. We're gonna try and be as cordial and as nice and as kind as we can about the
Please,
events
Stan,
that
I feel like you're
gonna
aiming
be
this at me.
kind and courteous.
No. It's not
Listen,
just
no.
you, Rindy,
I just want to say, I'm loving this professional hater energy that Noir was giving off the entire time. Great, I love it. Chef's kiss, moi. Everybody here has some very strong opinions about what's going down. So we're gonna
I will ask something of everyone, and that is that please to God, do not talk during someone's fucking theory unless they ask.
Josh, you know, swears this is a little family stream.
Alrighty then. Okay. So
Alright,
we're gonna
ready?
handle this same order as we normally do. I'm handing the talking stick to AC. Alright, go talk.
Alright,
Go ahead.
so I can be heard, right?
Yes, you can.
Alright.
He already gave his opinion, actually.
You really
Maybe we
did,
should
but go
skip
on.
him.
So, anyway, when it comes to theories of what's gonna happen next, I'm gonna be honest, quite unsure. Almost anything could happen. Wild things could happen. Germa could cameo. I don't know, but what I will talk about is the one thing I do know about, and it's the opinion that I possess because, well, it's my opinion. Of course, I know about it. And I'm about to sit here with y'all. And you know, this might be a little radical. This might be a little edge. Might be a little heavy hitter. You know what I mean?
Hold on, sir. Really quick, as the teacher of this classroom, less pros. Get to the hate.
You know what? Okay, thank you, B. All right, cool. Yeah. Okay, so Morgana, cool motive, still unforgivable, still irredeemable. Like, I don't care. You're Morgana. Nothing you cannot be forgiven at this point. The best moral thing you could do is to vanish, to die.
Now.
She's already dead.
Morgana is a blight, a curse, and has caused. It is overall a net negative for the entire world that she inhabits.
Die harder.
Well, she should die again.
They caused her death before she did anything to them.
Rindy.
Sorry.
Now, anyway, she should die again. She would perish forever because it's like the shit she's like putting people through, the shit she's putting Michelle through. Like I mean, I don't have to go into that. You're reading the story, I hope, but but yeah, kind of fucked up, kind of evil, kind of unforgivable. I think Morgana should have a permanent vacation to Shadow Realm.
Hello, this is once again the teacher really quick. If they're already in the shadow realm.
Yeah.
Well, this should be in hell. Never mind, I changed my statement.
Alrighty then. You good?
Do you have any more thoughts?
You know what? I'm good.
Okay,
All
now
right.
to professional hater.
Professional hater Noir Iblis, please go.
You know, it's funny that he ends on that because one of my theories I just have here is this just hell? Like, it's all a bunch of souls of sinners, nobody's happy, and it's just eternal torment. That's basically just hell that's just hell with extra steps in there.
Technically limbo, actually.
Well, I mean, limbo is part of hell. Someone ain't reading their Dante. Clearly, the witch hates everyone. This reconstruction is a curse that is made to make everyone unhappy forever, and she is just not capable of having positive emotions anymore. I think she is just like she's like the definition of toxicity. Like, she's just the most toxic at all times. That's all she does. There's no downtime. It's all bad.
Are you saying that Morgana is a professional hater?
She is literally spending all of her time hating. All of the hating.
Any other thoughts on that, or she's just a hater?
This is apparently a ghost house. We just have a house. The house itself seems to be a ghost. Regardless of how many times they've said, man, wouldn't it be great if someone had burned down this house? But it's also still real? And travels throughout time and location.
Morgana's moving mansion.
I think the problem I'm having with it is that this is absolutely not a narrative where they are front-loading any exposition whatsoever. You're going to get a mild premise, and then 18 chapters later, we're going to get a reveal of something happening. And a question will be answered, and there's going to have been like 4 new questions they set up right before that. And even when they're like, man, it's time to tell you the story of Morgana, it's going to be really fucked up and sad. And their idea is like, okay, great. Here's 8 more questions. And I feel a little better just knowing that we're basically down to like the last question now. And that's, what the fuck does Michelle have to do with any of this? Other than the fact that apparently Michelle is a girl and is also willing to believe a magic hellscape murder mansion that's constantly full of blood is definitely not trying to fuck with his head and punk him literally yet again. Like, the last 7 hours you just spent here were learning about how fucked up and horrible everything in Morgana's life was, while literally being drenched with blood as often as possible, and having to crawl through just a sea of blood to get your ass back up here to be angry about it at all. And we are just now to the point where she is just not forgivable. There's just I see no redeeming quality. I don't know how the plot could try to resolve her in a positive light. It feels pretty edgy. I would agree with that. I don't actually seem to know if Morgana's magic or if they're just kind of. To be fair, like the yada 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 to exactly what's going on and if it's science or magic kind of makes sense if all of this is ending by like 1869. Like that kind of makes sense. Like it sounds like Morgana doesn't entirely seem to know what any of this is or how any of this works either. Which does play into my final theory here, which is that Morgana does not have agency in this story. Or is at least struggling for as much agency in this nightmare to try to establish that she is the one in charge. She seems to be a damned soul, surrounded by damned souls, but she thinks she's in charge of this, and these aren't just cruel, horrible twists of fate. And she's turf hating, so I mean, trash. She's gonna write some bad wizard novels. I mean, she doesn't have anything better to do with her time.
All right.
Oh!
What do you think?
Let's go ahead and pass off the sharing stick to Bone now. Do you have anything
Hello,
to say?
Bone. You now have the mic.
Yeah, Morgana still sucks. Just die. Just die in peace, lady. Yeah, I'm also not. I'm not
Shit.
sure.
I'm sorry. I drank water and it died.
No, you don't die. You stay alive. Also, I do wonder if the actual thing that we saw with Giselle is like, oh, you're disgusting. I'm curious if that is a lie, like that is a trickery. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised she was born in the Middle Ages. That I don't really have much thought. It's pretty clear. Morgana sucks, and I'm not surprised about Giselle unless it's a trick. Next person.
All right, Shelly.
Okay. This might sound weird, but I sort of feel like the amount of suffering that Morgana suffered is not enough suffering to justify a eternal hate boner for every single possible like reincarnation of these three people.
She started when she
Like,
was 8, right? Suffering.
yeah, I mean, I get it. You had a shitty life until you were 16 and then you were killed. But this is like there are worse fates than what you got. It sucks, but I can think of
She
much
was
worse
also
in my
cut
fevered
repeatedly.
imagination.
You know what? Sorry,
I
I'm
really
interrupting.
appreciate not being talked over, but you know, it is what it is. But
I'm sorry.
also fuck turfs. I think that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, actually, don't skip me.
All right. Yeah, we'll skip you real
I said,
bit.
don't skip me.
Oh, don't skip you. Oh, okay.
Be sure to skip Roboot.
Sorry.
Oh.
All right then. Joshy, go ahead.
Now, I have a question for the people who have read this. If anyone
hello.
interjects, I have this deagle, meaning I will server meet you.
Okay.
That isn't the person that I am asking, the said people I am asking. Is it confirmed whether or not that Mel, Jacopo, and Yukimasa are in fact like legit the same exact people as the people who slighted Morgana?
See, you're gonna ask us this question, and I feel like me and Orange are of the same, maybe of the same opinion, but Zaz has a different opinion, so I don't know what to tell you on that.
So it's not stated in the story whether or not that's true.
I
Reader
suppose
interpretation.
the best answer I could give you on that is that, to a certain degree, I guess it's up for interpretation. But yeah, you'll see. Clinical Session says you'll see. Yeah.
I will say this from the previous text because you did get this, is Morgana's wish was for their reconstruction, and when she talked to Giselle about Michelle's reconstruction, they defined it as being the same person. That's how they discussed it, but yeah.
Okay, so, Morgana. I get why she would be angry at the people that slighted her, because that's some real fucked up shit. I don't think it's like, Still a monster though. It's like, I'm gonna use this equation, and anyone before you say anything, let me say the at least a reference. It's like when I read about like a serial killer, right? And you find out about their past, and it's like, that's really fucked up. Doesn't justify what you did though. It's like, okay, but I get how they got there. That doesn't justify it. It's like, I see the line where this was the thing that made them do these horrible things. Like, it's not justified. It's like fuck. It's fucked either or. But that being stated, I still, I don't know. I feel like, especially Jacopo, because, like, yeah, Mel's a bit of a cowardly bitch. I don't think Jacopo deserved, like, the wrath of, like, a previous life that he probably has no memory of. Like, there's nothing really to justify, like, because, like, I don't know whether or not that they remember everything that they did or not, but, like, they're like a new person. They don't, that's not justified. Like, they're not the same person at that point. It's not justified. But, like, after that point, like, but I'm not gonna say that Morgana is, like, like, I kind of see where they're coming from. It doesn't justify it, but I see where the hate and malice grew and spurted from. That being stated, boy, I'm going to, assume that, Giselle saying what she had said back there, was maybe an illusion from, like, Morgana, because, like, if Giselle knew at that moment, why did Giselle not say that at any point after her and Michelle got really close?
What do you mean? Hold on.
So, like, okay, so the sequence of events in the past was that Giselle saw the letter, which Michelle wrote to his mother, and basically said all that.
I think you are that happened.
Am I
just
misremembering
now.
something?
No,
But,
that
like,
happened just now. In the past, she saw the picture and was curious, but then that.
Okay, so she didn't. Okay.
Yes.
Well then, hopefully, Giselle probably has learns to not be like that. That being stated, boy, I feel real bad for Michelle in that moment. That's fucked up. That's some real fucked up shit. Boy, no one's having fun in this story except for maybe Morgana, but Morgana didn't have fun when she was alive. No one's having fun.
Being posthumously dead named is rather cringe. You got anything else, Joshua?
Ooh. Yes. That is pretty much it.
All right.
Fucked up.
Passing the passing the mic to Roman.
Thank you. Really though, yeah, fuck you, Morgana. Why are you doing this, you spiteful little bitch? Yeah, AC. Everyone before me pretty much said what my thoughts were, aside from what I just said.
Oh, all right, sure.
Yeah, I tried thinking of something, but I'm just excited to see how this ends.
Alrighty then, Khan.
I am gonna have to agree with Joshi and play a little bit of devil's advocate. Mostly because this is just my nature, but also...
Before you do, I have to just justify. I have to say this. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I just see how it's broken.
No, I understand that completely, and I know you're not playing devil's advocate. And you do have a point. All of this just feels inevitable for Morgana. She was betrayed by her mother just for coins. She was abused. She was burned. She was sacrificed. Everything in the name of what she assumed was she was literally just this daughter of God. Until she had her arm cut off, just completely destroyed by a false church, and then killed.
Hello, this
How
is the
would
teacher.
anybody else not feel any rage after anything like that against anyone who hurt them?
Little less summary, but carry on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't think there's like when we're
It
saying
doesn't
this, I don't think we're
justify what Morgana's done.
yeah, like I don't think it's worth cursing people eternally, no matter how bad you got it, because that's just spreading the misery around.
No, it doesn't justify what she's done, and it doesn't justify the actions she's taking. But this is just how she's choosing to cope and how to release her rage. She's choosing actively to go ahead and support this point of frustration and anger and hatred. It may not have been in her nature in the first place, but it's been engraved on her, just like every scar that she's used to give blood. Every time that she's been chained. Every time that she's had to feel that pain again. She wanted to inflict it tenfold on the other souls because she can't let it escape. Because she's become the hate. She was always fated for this.
Alrighty then. Cool. Is there anything else?
I also have to go ahead and say, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint a massive fucking target on my back for this
Wait.
one.
Oh, okay.
Whoa. You alright there?
Whoa.
Her revealing to Giselle about the whole mess of... Actually, no, poor choice of words, let me rephrase that. She doesn't seem to be reveling or disgusted in the fact that Michelle is actually a woman. She seems to be more reveling in the fact that it's being used as another device to drive more despair and misery between Michelle and Giselle, so I wouldn't classify her as a TERF. There, I said it. I'm getting a soda. Wait, I have one right next to me.
Like, Khan, I wasn't talking about her. I was talking about Giselle saying that it was disgusting that he was actually a woman.
Okay,
I'm gonna
then.
back off from that.
Yeah,
But
we're just
very
gonna go
good.
ahead. We're not gonna touch any of that stuff until much later on because we're literally just getting into the whole thing.
But anyways,
Alright,
Rindy.
I'm gonna go hide
All
behind my
that-
bed before.
I had
Anyway.
one last thing to say, though.
Oh.
I do find it interesting that Morgana is also going out of her way to have Michelle, of all people, try to feel her pain when she knows and says that it can't be borne. Maybe part of her does want to share her pain and have someone to help pity or maybe help her empathize. Something like a human spirit. Because now she's just seen as a ghost and a witch. What do you guys think?
Okay, well, hold on a second. You did kind of cut off Rindy a little bit, so we can get to that question in the post discussion if you want to.
Sorry about that, Rindy.
You're
Okay.
fine. You're fine. You're fine. I'm just saying. All right, go
I
ahead.
super called it, but anyway, I don't support eternal punishment for infinite punishment for a finite crime. So I'm not on her side. However, if it was just like the revenge in that one life, I think it might have been fair. I think maybe it wasn't that bad. And also, fucking people are, oh yeah, Morgana should suffer for eternity in the Shadow Realm for wishing other people to suffer eternally for stuff they actually did to her. It's like, I don't know about that. Also, wow, the three people who voiced the three stooges that got her like this are all against her. I don't know. I don't know about that. Also, yeah. Unfortunate that Giselle is a turf. Morgana seems pretty cool. It sounds like Morgana might have actually given Michelle his like I don't know, like actually changed his body with magic. It was like some sort of ritual that he did himself or something like that. So if she did that, that's pretty base, pretty cool of her. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sure. Sim, besides the fact that you just think she sucks, do you have any
I agree with that. Part of my thing is like, even if it's justified, ignoring that whole discussion, she's still hurting a lot of innocent people in all of those stories who had nothing to do with anything.
Alright.
I don't have a whole lot else.
In between.
I do have a question. Is it supposed to say the House and Fata Morgana a Requiem for Innocence? Because that's a different streaming game. than we
A
have
Requiem
been
for
doing.
Innocence is the Switch version of the game.
Okay.
Oh wait,
Wait,
hold
wait,
on a
no,
second.
no,
Wait,
no, no,
oh
no.
wait,
No,
what
it's
the
not.
fuck? Wait, what? Oh no, I thought I put it as the fucking. I thought I put it as the
Let's say
Dreams and the
it's
Revenants
Dream of the
edition.
Revenants,
What?
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it used to be like something with
Here,
Revenants.
Streamlabs has chosen to slight me yet again today. Funny how that works. I'll fix it later. It's
how would
fine.
Streamlabs blighted orange?
We will get to that eventually.
Again with the orange boy difficulty.
Oh, is that the side stories?
That is one of the
That
side
is
stories.
one of the side stories.
Okay.
It'll be a fun time for all.
Are we allowed to know how many side stories there are?
There's a
A lot. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
May I add one thing to address what Sim said?
Sure.
If he's finished, of course.
Yeah, I'm done.
So, Morgana cursed these people specifically. So, like, if they were really unrelated, I feel like the curse wouldn't have worked. I don't think they just walked into the house and Morgana was like, that seems like the guy. It doesn't feel like that's how it worked. I feel like... Because it doesn't feel like she directly did anything. She just generically cursed them with this generic stuff, and their life took that course in the next life as a result. Like that's what I.
Sorry, there.
Also,
Okay.
Noir and
Go ahead.
Chad saying they died within the night after her, but that was also their own fault.
May
like
I
it wasn't her fault.
May I interject?
I mean, you're next, so sure.
I'm not next, but I think Sim is referring to the collateral, not the.
Yeah, like Javi
That's
and
fair.
Pauline and all of those
That's fair.
people who had nothing
Yeah.
to do with anything.
It's very funny. This has nothing to do with anything. Because the manga is not related. Well, the manga is related, obviously, but like the manga tells the story a little bit differently. I would just like to say, justice for Javi. He does live in the manga version.
Oh, does he?
For no reason in
Oh, yeah.
particular.
Did he die?
It's just different. It's just built different. So don't worry
He
about it. We don't
super
pay attention
died.
to it.
Oh, I don't even
Yuki
remember him.
must
No,
kill
in the
everyone
VN
in
he
the
died.
village.
In the manga
Yeah.
he's alive.
Oh, I don't even remember him dying in the VN.
Kinda
Yukimasa
cuts.
just killed everybody that was
said
there.
that Yukimasa just like slaughters the rest
Oh.
of the village and whatnot.
Also, there was that guy that got tortured on the boat because of the reconstruction.
Yeah. Oh, I don't like. Yeah, they don't deserve it, but Morgana also doesn't feel like directly did it to them. Like it's more like the world chose to fulfill it in that way. Like I don't get the impression she actually affected their life physically as they live them. For the most part, except maybe stopping Giselle when she was trying to help or something like that. Like, it's collateral, but it's not like she didn't choose to hurt anyone else.
It just sounds
Alright,
like she
that's
cared.
Okay. All
I
right.
mean, should she have cared?
I mean, about
the guy on the
innocent
boat?
people?
Really,
I mean,
really,
it's not like.
really,
Guys,
guys,
wait.
hold on a
Okay,
second.
okay, sorry.
Crimson did
Sorry,
not get
sorry.
his turn. Go, please.
Yeah,
Say your
sorry.
piece first.
Sorry.
Wait, is it my turn now?
It's
Yeah,
your
go.
turn, and then we'll have a free discussion, and y'all can just go balls to the walls, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, Morgana, I kind of thought that because of her life basically believing that she was a saint, kind of warped her thinking process of saying, "Oh, I don't deserve this. I never deserved this." And that's when she eventually, collapsed in her mental decay of basically going completely balls to the wall evil. She doesn't realize that she's creating her own misery by suffering by her own pain and misery. She could have just let go and just let off to the afterlife, but no, she kind of made her own hell in the mansion. Literally, the mansion is her own personal hell, and she's dragging anyone that she believes that basically cursed her to curse them, kind of like a cyclical cycle. Also, bringing other people to serve her purpose, like Michelle and Giselle. Also, a lot of stuff happened. Also, the whole mansion burning down kind of confirmed that, yeah, that mansion just floats until whenever one of those people are born. Like, if when the flaxen hair guy got born, the mansion just appeared. When the beast guy was born, it appeared. When the lore guy got born, it appeared. It just appears whenever one of those souls gets reincarnated or reconstructed, while the other two were just basically inadvertently just caused within the spiritual thing of that mansion of Michelle and Giselle. So I kind of feel, yeah, that is a cursed mansion.
Alrighty then.
All right.
So, in the
Fight, fight.
interest,
Everybody
wait,
enters the
really
pit. Go.
quickly. I'm giving you guys like a 10-minute time limit because we're almost at 3 hours. Please, please be concise. Okay, go, go.
10 minutes for what?
If y'all
I
wonder,
would-
like how, like Con, you said another question for everyone, like all, like just any other like back and forth that you guys had.
Oh, okay.
I would like to point out that she did specify that I always forget his name, Middle Door, Bestia,
Yukimasa.
Yukimasa. That what she was gonna do to Yukimasa was just give him less impulse control. Like she had to have known that that was going to result in people being harmed and killed.
Or worse, it means that she is just wishing that he has like a severe mental problem where he just attacks other people or takes active enjoyment in slaughtering others.
Like, and also,
which is worse, way
yeah, and
worse.
also Nell was a specified part of Mel's curse.
She
Like
was also like
she was linked to it.
I mean,
Yeah, it was actually.
she was also. I got the impression she also kind of wronged her. She basically had the same like feelings toward Morgana that Mel did, taking her for granted and like not and like thinking of her as a witch more than anything and stuff like that.
That doesn't justify it though.
It wasn't.
I mean, but I mean that the revenge is justified on her as much as it is about on Mel.
Kind of, but not really, because it was mostly because of Mel kind of doing that to her because of his sister.
But
So
the
she was
sister
kind
also
of
shared the
excluded.
same. I got the impression that the sister shared the same sentiment as Mel.
She
Okay,
didn't
but,
cause
like,
her death or misery.
My issue with that is that she's fucking sick and dying. Like,
Yeah.
Also, she's younger than him. They were considerably
Oh.
young.
So was she. So was Morgana.
Like, so was Morgana, but like again, but like if it's like I'm
Like,
not
they
saying
just-
that I don't get it. It's like, okay, cool. Like, she had reason to be pissed. I'm not saying that like, oh hey, yeah, like she didn't have reason to not be upset. My argument is that like I don't think Mel in the timeline that we followed his story necessarily deserved what like his past life got. Like, I get why she's doing it. It's not cool. Well, okay, you don't think that she is that active. I am going off of the fact that she is active. If she is not active, then that means she just watches them like suffer and or / keeps them in the fucking mansion. But like that requires us to believe that like Morgana did not have any control. And if Morgana does not have control, then it's on them. But if she does, then like that's her fault.
I mean, the thing is, the curse was like uttered when she died. It's not like they came and they showed up at the house again, and then she like changed them or did anything to them.
I'd say that the mansion appeared right when one of them was born.
What? No, that doesn't make sense. Like Mel's dad was the master of the house before Mel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crimson, then why did the mansion appear with? Like,
He must have just found the mansions like wandering around.
Oh wait, do we know who the nun's reconstruction is?
We're not for sure on that.
Not
It's
not
either
exactly.
Maria or it's Giselle.
I think it could also be Pauline because it seemed like the Yukimasa XP really cared about the nun. So maybe.
Maybe it's. Look, I just find it weird that it's like, oh, the 3 voice actors of the character. Like, I didn't even give Mel
I was
the benefit
kidding. I
of the
wasn't
doubt.
serious.
It's a joke.
That was a joke.
So what was this question be?
I'm going to simply keep my mouth shut and keep my 2 cents to
I have a
myself.
question.
Yes, Bone.
Can she be a turf if she's not a feminist? I don't know if she's a feminist.
Giselle is a feminist. Giselle is absolutely a feminist.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to like anyone.
She's very
like,
free spirited, but I don't know if she can be called a feminist.
Very religious.
I think she's like
she
like
openly described the other prostitutes who were giving her medicine as just being horrible, filthy.
No, but that's Morgana.
I'm talking about Giselle.
Oh, Giselle, that's different then, yeah.
Acting like Giselle does in those times is like going against what a woman should be
There's
doing.
a lot
Like,
of anachronisms though in this. Like it feels like
she's very
nobody
she's
really
very
addresses
open,
her.
she's very free.
Nobody addresses her free spiritedness, and there's also like a lot of talk that it's
because
anachronistic.
even though there is history and like vague historic events and everything, this is not.
doesn't really matter.
It's not like that kind of period piece.
Yeah, so I don't know if she's really a feminist.
The
I don't even know that
thing is window dressing.
Did feminism even exist back then?
Of course not.
I mean, not in the way we
I
think
mean, like
of
in
it
a
now. but at any
spiritual,
point,
like long-standing
Yeah.
existence stance.
if a woman is unhappy
First
with her
wave
place of
feminism.
society due to
Oh my
being a
god,
woman,
she showed her ankle.
she shows. Giselle shows a lot more than her ankle.
Yeah,
let's
she
be
does a
honest.
lot more than her. That's another anachronism. And oh
Aren't
boy,
they also
I like
French?
that.
They're French though.
Oh no.
The French are pretty like open
Same
about
con.
that.
That's true. Anyways, run it back. Run it back to other things.
Sorry for the coughing. I had mucus in my throat.
Oh, good.
Apologize for things you don't have control over.
Oh, are we done? He got quiet. Is the
Robert,
pit
it
over?
was fine for Khan to say sorry about that. Sometimes you do just say sorry reflexively. That's not bad.
I haven't made
Now,
any
however, there are-
thoughts.
Okay, yes.
Okay, yes,
your
yes, what
thoughts.
thoughts?
You can give your thoughts in the fight club with me. Let's go.
Wait, this person
Why
have a
he
fight
says
club?
his thoughts, as tell him to me.
I think the House in Fata Morgana is a wonderful story.
Yeah.
I agree.
On that, we can agree.
The fact that we can actually have a conversation like this about complex morality in these situations is pretty interesting. I like it.
Listen, I have thoughts about each and every one of you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm tired of conversations about complex morality. I don't want to go back to D&D.
Then why did you show this?
My morals are very complex.
Don't go to the
I don't know. That wasn't really an argument about morality. Orange. Back
Anyway,
then.
yeah, go talk about how I'm super right more.
Hold on now. Don't put all your eggs in a single basket.
Why would you show Umineko in the House in Fata Morgana if you don't want conversations on complex morality?
That wasn't a complex argument.
Orange, are you guys on this?
You better fucking believe I'm playing Splatoon 3. I'm getting bored.
Okay, I guess we should end this, but also I would like to end on the thought that we can always have conversations on complex morality, but I am always right. No, I'm just kidding.
I am always moral and always correct.
This has been fun. I can't wait to see what's behind door 7.
I'm so
What does this voice have?
Clinical obsession, you're hilarious.
What did they say? Wait.
Yeah, should I have to Carly
Squaring
Rae
up in the Gwyn's parking lot over where the Morgana was
What about- wait,
justified.
what about Carly Rae Jepsen?
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at fucking messages in the lobby. It's Splatoon, and one of them is just Carly Rae Jepsen.
I agree.
Okay.
agree with that.
Parking lot.
Have we reached the 3-hour mark?
I think so.
That's where fights happen.
Wait, hold
Colin.
on. Okay, we have 55 seconds. Say your piece now.
You square up
Morgana did nothing wrong.
You square up in the Denny's parking lot because that's where fights happen at 3 a.m.
God damn
Be
it.
sure to read
Morgana
Beagle
is morally
Forest.
correct.
Like
If
at 3
only-
Oh, true, best.
Morgana,
So true, bestie.
if only Giselle was gay, there would be no problem.
What?
I don't think she was
Huh?
allowed to be gay back then.
That ain't teaching.
We're not getting into that discussion now.
Yeah.
that's gonna be
Yeah.
a
I feel like I don't have the knowledge for that.
Okay, wait, if only she
discussion.
was bisexual, then she wouldn't. Okay, there we go.
Please, just understand that the Michelle that we've been following on a personal level does identify as a man. Keep that in
Yes,
mind.
I'm trying to dig myself out of the hole.
Okay.
I think I'm nailing it.
All right, cool. We reached 3
Are
hours. I'm
you?
ending the stream right the fuck now.
Adios.
Bye-bye. Adios,
Bye.
muchachos.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bring this into a
I'm-
government fight hole.
I'm good.